Hello, I'm here, and I'm making another Spy Weapons tier list, even though I did that on the main channel. Well, what's the point if I already made a tier list? Well, that tier list was based on the consistency of the weapons, not based on how much I like them or overall power. Basically, yes, the kunai can absolutely shred, but it relies on specific situations that are really outside of your control to do really well. And to sort of just add a little bit of an addendum to that, this tier list is based on how much I just like the weapon. This is very much just me and my personal preference. This is Dom, the biased version of it. But basically, just so you can see how much I like it. So I set up this really scuffed one on Tier Maker already. I just took a template, modified it a bit, got this. So, it's pretty simple. You can already see what one tier is, and I'm just gonna immediately get this out of the way. Is stock. All of the stock weapons just go up here because it is just stock. It's my most used loadout. Now, the reason stock all went into this tier in the original video was because, again, it is hyper consistent. You can't go wrong with equipping these. The only one that wasn't a stock weapon that went into that tier was this one. It was the Letonge, which apparently that's not actually even how it's pronounced. Google Translate lied to me, yay. But the reason it went into that tier as well, because you can't go wrong with using it. This is like the only unlock that really feels like that. I mean, Diamondback kind of as well, but that one was just actually overpowered. But yeah, like these, I just like it. And the other reason I like it is not just because it's consistent, but because it's also just Spy in his most pure form. Like, it's just Spy. Like, at his best. I'm not specializing into any specific way of playing Spy. I am just, it's the best of all the parts. You know, you shoot people, the disguise and all that. When you go, like, with stuff like the kunai, or go dithering kunai, you go gun spy. You're hyper fixating on those types of playstyles, and it's also why my videos generally revolve around the stock weapons. Is because my spy psychology revolves around it, because the advice when talking about stock weapons translates really well into the unlocks, right? Like saying, "Oh, he only focuses on the stock playstyle." Well, if I focused on gun spy exclusively, that advice would translate terribly to traditional spy. But a lot of the advice can translate to other playstyles if it just focuses around the baseline. And I like it. Again, simple. It just works. It just works. So again, not really worth talking about the stock weapons individually, because they all just kind of are there for the same reason. So let's actually begin with the non-stock weapons, and we're going to start with your total reward in Oh Yeah Baby. This is my personal favorite knife unlock for a couple of reasons. The main reason is that it changes up how you play Spy very drastically, while still like being within the identity of Spy. But it changes so much. It changes how you approach situations so much. It is so interesting, and even better, it is interesting to fight against, because it changes up how that spy approaches, and a lot of the tells that he has. A lot of the ways you have of finding a spy just don't exist when they are using this knife, and you have to be a lot more careful to avoid dying to that. Like, genuinely good Your Eternal Reward spies, when I'm fighting against them, they scare me. They scare me so much, because because the way this knife works, when people are good at using it, they don't really have, like, exploitable patterns. Like, you can't really catch on to their patterns very easily. It is really good. It mixes up so many ways of how you approach situations. Like, it is the only knife that actually maintains your cover between kills. The fact, like, the idea of disguising as the person who you kill, it's such a cool idea. I love it so much, and it's executed really well. Not perfectly, honestly, but it's executed so well, and it lives up to what it is trying to do. I love it so much. Itch there, but yeah, it's so cool. It is so much fun to play with, and it just plays into its intended style so well. I love this thing. It's great, and it mixes up Spy in such an interesting way. It changes up the way you approach and think. It makes you think. I like when it makes you think, and it makes you think when you fight against it. It feels interesting to fight against. I think this thing is honestly really, really cool. And yeah, I just like this weapon. Now next up, we're gonna go for the big earner, which also goes into oh yeah baby tier. And no, don't worry, this isn't gonna be a duplicate of the one that I made in the tier list from the other video. There will be differences, but the big earner is in this tier also for kind of the opposite reason. It's simple. It's just simple. It just works, right? The downside plays off the upside really well because you're just gonna move around and avoid getting hit, which the speed boost plays into. But of course, it doesn't feel annoying to fight against because you can still hit the spy. It might be harder to hit, but you hit him, he's still dead. And like again, just using it is simple. Like it's a 3-second speed boost. There's lots of different ways that you can go about that, but it's not a complicated mechanic to explain. And losing 25 heart, like I think it's a really good side grade. And it's like I feel like on the original tier list itself, I feel like it actually does have a higher consistency than the Your Turn of Reward. Maybe because it's simplicity, like it benefits from a lot less specific situations, I guess, but both of them are still quite versatile. But I just like this thing. It's simple. It does what you needed to do. It just works, right? It just works. Next up, let's do the kunai. Now, it actually goes here because this thing is really fun to use. Granted that you were good enough to use it. Obviously, if you are not great at spy, this thing kind of sucks to use. But when it goes well, and it is a blast to use. You can go on these crazy chain stabs, these kill streaks, all this kind of stuff with trick stabs. It's fun to use. It would go here if it weren't for the inherent design problems. Like one, it's really relies on feeding off teams with bad players. Like, it's not impossible to use in places like Uncle Topia. I've used it in places like Uncle Topia and succeeded. I mean, combined with a Dead Ringer, no. But, like, it can do alright. But again, it's like, the better the lobby is, the worse this thing becomes in comparison to the other knives. And so it goes... And the other thing is that it's annoying to fight. Like, you get punished for the mistakes of your teammates. And that's not fun. Like, that's why it sits here. But again, it is a blast to use. And so that's why it sits between these two tiers. Yeah. It's heavily reliant on that. And again, this is not the tier list based on consistency. Again, because the one where it was based on consistency, this one was right down the bottom because it relied on specific situations. But again, this is just how much I like it. But again, I like using it. Using it is fun. But I understand but I get why fighting against it sucks, and I don't like that it relies on feeding off bad players from a design standpoint. But again, so it just kind of sits here, right? Like I know most people watching would absolutely put it here. Would absolutely put it here because yeah. Also, I just hello. I've been outside. You can see his sunglasses tan on me. It's my that goes outside. Next up, Spicicle. This one also goes here. This is probably the one that I enjoy using the least. Mainly because I don't like my knife disappearing. I want to have this thing available to me because it is the way I kill people instantly. I like this thing. I don't really like it. I mean, I've used it on like Gunspy and it has utility on Intel Spy. I've used this thing a couple times, and maybe like when I get really annoyed by a pyro, I'll use it just to throw them off. But yeah, I don't find myself. It's the one that I find myself like least wanting to use, like just the fun factor alone. But I do have to give credit where credit is due. It's like one of the few class countering weapons that isn't a pain to fight against because it enables the pyro to disrupt you in a new way, in a completely different way. It might be hard to kill you, but they can deny your ability to backstab even easier than before. So I do think, and it changes the way that the pyro interacts with you. It doesn't just make their job harder because you pressed a few buttons in the loadout screen. I think that's cool. So credit where credit is due, but I don't like using this thing too much. And honestly, I'm kind of glad it's not meta. Like, it's not too meta. I mean, it is definitely good in you using more, again, Gunspy or Intel Spy. If you're not relying on this thing, on the insta-kills of the knife as much, this thing becomes a lot better. But again, this is how much I like it, it goes here. I don't find myself wanting to use it any that much, so there. Now the watches. This is Oh Yeah Baby, the Cloak and Dagger. Um, of course, in the other tier list, it was a bit lower because again, it is quite sluggish. But in terms of how much I like it, it's up here. I think it's kind of the middle ground between the Big Earner and the Your Eternal Reward. And the reason it's just like it mixes up how you approach situations as spy, not to the same extent that Yer does, but it's cool. It's cool. You can sit there, you can watch, you can give intel. You can be really, really sneaky and just sort of like have a more creeping playstyle. And again, it just enables that playstyle of just being a bit slower, being a bit more methodical. You can do that, and I find it definitely works quite well on defense because people are running into you. But I like it. It changes up the playstyle in an interesting way. Like, I definitely still like Cloak more because, again, it's just more versatile. But I do also appreciate the change of pace this one does. It's not for everyone. I definitely agree. If you like more fast, if you like more fast-paced gameplay, and I get it. Like, I like fast-paced gameplay in games, but I can get that some people this is just like too slow. It's boring for you, but I like having to wait and just like jump. Suddenly just these bursts of action. Just having to be patient, think a bit, collect my thoughts, and then go. Like suddenly go. Like I like how this changes the way you play, and again, it's not annoying to fight. It's not annoying to fight against. I think another strength I like is that it's not like super obvious when someone is using it. It's easy to hide that you're using it, and you can use that to your advantage, and I like that. So it goes into Oh Yeah Baby tier. I like this one. Dead Ringer. You know where this one's going to go. It's going to go dumb tier. And it kind of in comparison to Your Eternal Reward. The Your Eternal Reward is a awesome concept and executed really well as to what it sets out to do, being this whole silent assassin thing. It's really cool. The Dead Ringer has a really cool concept, but the execution just completely just fumbles. Because it's supposed to be a tool for trickery. Like, faking your death is such a cool concept. That's so cool. It plays into spy, trickery, mind games thing super duper well. But in practice, it doesn't do that very well. Why? Because it rolls on decloak. You can't manually cloak with it. It's really obvious when you're using it. And I don't mind that there are ways that you can tell, like the kill death ratio not going up, and maybe there's certain things like there are ways to tell when it's a fake death. But that's not the problem. It's the fact that the thing is, you only notice those tells if you're actively looking for them. You have to check for them. And it's kind of a little bit similar to how disguises work, right? So you can't fool people. The problem is, because you can't manually cloak, it's kind of obvious. And it kind of eliminates, like, you often can't use that to mind game. Even when you disguise as teammates, eventually people will catch on to that as well, and you have now lost that element of surprise. Like, you cannot cloak without getting hit, and it makes it really bad for stealth, right? And it's like, the playstyles that people now use it for are for gun spy and kunai trick stabbing. And it's not that those playstyles are bad, it's the fact that the way this weapon is built, it is not meant to do that, and it's not the player's fault that they are doing it with it, it's the game's fault that it is allowing that to happen. Right? Like, if you had another watch that, like, deliberately enabled aggressive, if you had a watch that was purpose-built to enable gun spy and trick stabbing spy, I would be fine with that, because it did that by design. This does not do that by design. It's supposed to be a thing for trickery, but no one uses it for that. And I think that's just bad. It's just a failure of this thing's design. And it sucks, because it would be so cool, the faking death thing, but it just doesn't work out. It just doesn't work out because it's just not balanced right. So, yeah. I don't like it. And there are people who like using it. Fair enough. There's the trick stabbing stuff, but I don't like that it's such a cool concept that has had its reputation completely ruined because everyone thinks of it as the face tank watch rather than the cool spy death fakey watch, right? Okay. Look at my eyes, working all day. Now, we will go with the red tape. I think it's alright. If I use this thing more often, I would definitely probably go into oh yeah baby tier. But here it's like it's alright. I think I definitely do think it's underrated. I definitely used to think this thing was just trash. Like I probably would have put it in dumb tier like a few years ago, but I've grown on it. Some people have made some really compelling cases about it, and it has a lot of interesting utility and changes up how the interaction works. And of course, I am a sucker for how it changes up the interaction. Honestly, I'm just not familiar enough with the interaction to put it here. If I was more familiar, again, I would probably be putting it up here. But I'm putting it alright. I think it's alright. I like how it changes things up. I just need to be more familiar with it. I need to play around with it a bit more. Not too much else to say there. Now, Ambassador. Alright. It's okay. I probably would have put it in oh yeah baby if it wasn't nerfed as hard as it was in Jungle Inferno. I get that it needed to be nerfed, but I think they nerfed it a bit too hard. Like, I would keep the limit on the range of the headshots, but not the fact that the damage falls off so as hard as it does. But it's alright. I think, again, I can't deny that it is just fun to go around headshotting people with this thing. Like, headshots is inherently satisfying to do, and I'm not gonna argue that. I obviously absolutely prefer the stock revolver because it's, again, consistency, but it's alright. I like playing with it occasionally. I do think it is cool and fun to use. The Thorja, how pronounced. Oh yeah, baby! I like this thing. It is just simple, and it lets me cloak more, or lets me be stealthier more often, right? And like, you can see, like, you can be getting to see how this is differing from the tier list I put on the main channel. Because remember, that tier list was based on consistency, how consistent and reliable those weapons were. This tier list is just based on how much I like them, really. Like, how much do I like it, right? And yeah, I like this thing a lot. And of course, it's not a stock weapon. I'm not going to put it in the stock tier because stock weapons just aren't worth talking about. They all kind of go about the same reasoning. This one, I just like it. It's simple. You get more cloak. I can sneak around more. I can use it to sneak, and it makes playing with the Your Eternal Reward bearable. Frankly, I like it. Enforcer, all right. You probably would guess that from my opinion and the thing. Like, again, this is down a tier from where it would be. Like, again, imagine that this is the versatile tier. Like, that would be down a tier from that. Like, but yeah, you know, Enforcer was up here in that video. It's here in this one because, again, I just think it's alright, right? I don't feel at a super significant disadvantage while using it, and sometimes it has niche use cases. But you know, some people like it a lot more, and that's fine. That's respectable. There's a lot of weird little quirks that you can use. You can make use out of it, and I think that is fine if you like it. But frankly, I just think, to me, again, I just say, like, it's the gun that exists. It definitely exists. And, you know, it's kind of, to me, it's just kind of unremarkable, you know? Occasionally having its moments. But the downsides are, like, so minor that it barely matters. And then finally, the Diamondback. This one goes in dumb tier. Because it's overpowered. Like, it is fundamentally broken. I've already made a video on the main channel discussing this. It's the Diamondback. It's just too good at being it, and it is fundamentally broken and dumb, and I don't like it. Anyway, this is the tier list. Well, I mean, I'm saying over there because the screen's over there, but you know what I mean. This is the tier list about spy weapons again, but they're based on just how much I like them, right? Stock weapons, I just like stock the most, so it's not worth talking about them. These other ones, oh yeah, baby, it's just like, I love these weapons, they are interesting to use, I like them, I really like them. Alright, are weapons that I feel are flawed, or like, I had things holding them back that hold me back from really liking them, but I don't mind them too much. And then dumb are just weapons that I think are dumb, that I don't like. But yeah, this is just the, like, this is just me and based on taste, really, this tier list. This is the one based on taste and not actually giving advice onto how reliable certain weapons are. or even just like power. Like I'm not gonna make a tier list based on power because that it depends on when you put where you put that what situation you put a weapon in as to how powerful it's going to be. So I don't really want to make a tier list based on power. I just want to make it based on consistency, and then just for fun, I'm gonna make another one based on how much I like them, just to share a bit of my personal taste. But yep, that's it. Thanks for watching. Okay, I'm gonna stop recording. Okay, bye.